All the people in my division, all the civilians, are well knowledge in resources within our region, not just within our city, but in the greater Southwest Washington West Coast area, and they're always looking to make more connections because there's people with unique needs that come up that have never heard of this before, and this is their barrier. And it's about a short-term case management to get them to the best agency that can help, either government or an NGO that can help them make their next best step so they're not on the streets anymore.
You said resources, and I know what you mean by that, but it occurs to me not everyone might. So rattle off like 5 resources, just the last 5 resources someone has needed.
Resources, a huge one where there's gaps is drug treatment. People that have co-occurring drug and mental health issues, they find it difficult to navigate a way into treatment for them because they'll be too acute for the drug and alcohol treatment, or they need to have they're too drug acute for their mental health problems. So it kind of falls in a gap. So that's one. There are people that need just assistance with housing, that they need a place to have a springboard from where they can have a roof over their head for a bit. There are people that need help with getting documents. They've since have lost their ID. They don't have their Social Security card. They haven't been connected to those resources, Social Security or Medicare, things with that we kind of take for granted. Those are in the workforce. Maybe you got health insurance and you got a paycheck coming in. You don't think about those things that cashing a check is difficult when you don't have ID. So those are a handful of things that people need. First barrier or first hurdle to get over to get on a path.
So you mentioned drug treatment. So I think I know the answer to this, but say I have a drug addiction problem and I've decided today's the day. Is it easy to just walk right into drug treatment?
A person can get into drug treatment. Not every day does that happen, but we've had success within 24 hours of getting people into treatment.
And this is through the building relationships and the connections that your unit has made.
Correct. And it's not just in our region. We have connections all throughout our state. We've got people on buses and trains to get to their location where the treatment is at. But
just out of curiosity, because it gets asked all the time, are we in the business of putting people on a bus just to ship them into another jurisdiction to make them someone else's problem?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Why would we put someone on a bus?
We would put somebody on the bus if they can confirm that they have a resource network where they're going to. And that's the only reason why we would do that. And it has to be confirmed that they have a network of resources, being family, friends, something that's already existing. Maybe they have a job waiting for them in Tallahassee, making it up, but it could be somewhere. No, but no, we don't just put people on a bus and put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in their pocket and say, good luck whenever you get to wherever you're going.
Yeah, tell the cops in San Francisco we said hello.
Right.
Not doing that.
Not doing that.
So let's back up a little bit further. So we don't have a unique situation where we work. We have what's sort of become a common situation in certain regions, certainly. So on the West Coast, let's go back, say, to 2013, 2014. We see a huge spike in our homeless population. And just again, to solidify the connection, the homeless connection to mental illness is important because often we see homelessness, mental health issues, and substance use all as co-occurring problems. And so when we mentioned we saw a huge influx in homeless residents, if you will, in our community, that's important because they bring co-occurring mental illness and substance use disorders, right or wrong?
Not every person who is out on the streets, are they substance abuser or have mental health problems? That's not everybody.
Right, of course.
But the majority are, vast majority are having some problem with one or both. And that's where our unit comes into address. It's easy. We do come across people that they're not using drugs. They have had a circumstance happen. that they're looking to get back up on the horse, if you will, and get back to work. And those problems are usually solved within 2 days.
Got it. So around I get the days wrong, but 2013 through 2015, somewhere right in there, a neighboring jurisdiction, a well-meaning nonprofit opens up a homeless shelter, a low or no barrier homeless shelter. And it could have been a coincidence. It could have been directly related. I don't have the science on it, but overnight, our community saw a massive increase, documented increase in the homeless count in our community.
Yeah.
So we see that happen, and then that jurisdiction right off the get-go is dealing with numerous calls for service at the shelter. It's a big political nightmare for that community, our sister city across the river. And so you were working during all that? You want
I
to
was
talk
on-
about what things were like during that situation they were dealing with, if we had any fallout from that?
Yeah, I was on patrol then from about 2012 through 2017 when that was had spun up. And you say it was our sister city. It was like the shelter is about 4 blocks from our city limits.
Right.
So it's right on our back door.
Right.
And us being the bigger city, we have more resources for people to utilize. You would see a steady stream of people on our streets now as well that were choosing not to utilize the shelter that was available across the way for a myriad of reasons. Sometimes there was just like, I don't like the people there. There's too many rules. There are rules. And that's a barrier for some people to have a rule. And so we got people now that were choosing not to use a shelter because of these reasons. And so that was the clientele that we were getting.
And contrary to like what the naysayers would believe, because it looks lawless, or rather that is to say, that situation looked completely lawless. They did have rules. They're just, it's a low barrier shelter and they're difficult to enforce. So we see an influx during this same time period, and eventually that city closes the shelter. And so we have this spike in population, some of which are living at this low or no barrier shelter, some of which have spilled out onto the streets. But one way or the other, that closes. And then we see a huge spike in our public spaces because we're the city with the most resources. We have the hospital. We just have the most resources. And so we see a spike in the places that are lawful to assemble, like city parks, city spaces,
Undeveloped
medians,
commercial areas.
right, as trespassers as well on private property. So we just see these encampments popping up all over. Hundreds of people.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people.
So that starts to affect the community we work in. And so we start to hear public outcry about these encampments and these individuals just taking over public spaces. The first sort of big one I remember on a public space, because there were many on private property, like you mentioned. Actually, let's back up. So the first thing we started to get was reports of trespassing, right? On private property, camps set up on undeveloped commercial property. So talk a little bit about how that was addressed. And now we're right in 2016, 2017, right in that window of time.
Yeah, right about then we had a couple big areas, like dozens upon dozens of acres of undeveloped commercial land that had been untouched, overrun with weeds, brambles, and it was a great spot for people to burrow into and create their own forts.
Yeah, right.
Camps, if you will, beyond just putting up a tent. Like if you're thinking of a campsite of pitching a tent, you're not thinking of what we were seeing. We're seeing that people had plywood structures, or just debris fields of garbage. It looked like little mini garbage dumps that they would just build upon each other, and were laying on heaps of garbage on these undeveloped spaces.
And everything from construction material, plywood, pallets, cars, boats. It was really like Hook, the movie Hook, the Lost Boys camp. Remember the one in the trees?
Yeah.
Some of them are really elaborate and really well done, and really tunnels, several
two-story
stories,
structures.
yeah. So super elaborate, because it was secluded, couldn't be seen from the road, so we weren't getting calls from the public. The landowner's disconnected from the property. He or she's not, or maybe it's a conglomerate. They are not making reports, and so it's out of sight, out of mind to the community, but it grows. And then a couple of things happen. Ultimately, the property would sell for commercial development, but we had, I don't know what you call it, but a cleanup effort in that window of time where folks were told they had to go.
Yeah, property owners started getting notified
Right.
of the complaints.
For nuisance abatement.
The nuisance, right? The
Yeah.
city becomes aware of problems. However, we became aware of them, but the city took a multifaceted approach of, we'll use nuisance abatement, which are not the police laws, but your building codes, and these areas were not coded for such activities. And some of the landowners were caught blindsided by it. I have this chunk of land that I've had for eons, I've never had to worry about, and then they go down, you could see their faces be shocked when they would show up. They can't believe what is happening. The laws became murky for police enforcement of, have you allowed somebody to camp here? Is this trespassing? Where are the lot lines at? Because we're talking about divided commercial lots. So a lot of work had to go into making sure that we protected the rights of all. And once the police had all the facts straight of where these lines were at and who the owners were, nuisance abatement letters sent out. We now have owners on board that, yes, I want this problem solved. We helped solve problems by going in and educating the people that they are in fact trespassing, encouraging them to leave the property and find resource that could get them down the path. This is before we had a behavioral health unit to help with these resources.
Right. But right now it's just patrol officers.
This is patrol officers and just good,
different cop each
good luck.
time. Yeah.